start. But the show isn't.
Like rushing to finish last minute work I need to do.
No one even knows that we're on Torture Planet right now.
Well, now they do that. Now that you've told them.
Oh, fuck.
That's okay. I don't think
It's
anybody
over.
is watching because I haven't put the announcement out.
Well, that's okay.
No one will ever watch the VOD of this, and they'll never specifically watch the, like, opening 50 seconds of the VOD, so they won't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now people might know.
Oh, fuck.
Maybe. Wait, what? Oh, I see.
Let everybody file in here. We'll start in a minute. Getting my notes together.
Someone in chat says they made their first YouTube poop out of this episode. That's awesome.
That's impressive. I don't think I ever saw any YTP that utilized Columbo as the seed material.
Columbo's not really known for poop.
No,
Not really.
there's never an episode where that's particularly important.
Not yet. There's still time.
Oh, what did I do?
Just ordered a box set of Columbo off eBay. That's cool.
Brand new Columbo.
I'm trying to wonder, like, I'm imagining what a box set of Columbo in VHS tapes would be, because the episodes are so long that, like,
Oh, man.
Yeah.
it would be like 60 VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be
That's like
awesome.
a whole bookshelf.
I want the Columbo bookshelf full of a million VHS tapes. That's awesome.
Pretty dope.
A great centerpiece for any room in your house. Maybe every room in your house. Get a couple.
Yeah, exactly.
I should actually pull up my notes so that I have those ready and I'm not stumbling around.
I think
I
you
had
should
to rush
stumble around.
through
Oh, okay.
making my notes within the last like 2 hours because my dog had a disaster. A dog disaster.
No. A doggy
That's so
do
sad.
incident.
Yeah. So that's what me and Trevor were doing this morning.
I never make notes. I just
But-
raw dog it every single time.
I love making notes.
But then I got a bagel.
Oh, that sounds
And that was pretty good.
Nice.
I would love a
Always
bagel.
gotta get a bagel before talking about Columbo.
I ate a pancake and a bit of sausage and a little bowl of oatmeal and a banana and some nuts because I had like 5 or 6 different tiny scraps of leftovers like this to use up. So I was like, fuck it, I'll have it all. With eggs on top and don't skimp out on the truffle pate.
Hell yeah.
A true morning's feast.
And then for lunch I had 1 orange because I was still full.
But a single orange.
All right. You two ready?
Oh,
You
yep.
good? All right. Well, welcome everybody to the
Hi.
3rd episode of Well, That Explains It, an RTVS Columbo podcast. I realized in the first 2 episodes we didn't even say who we are, which is not
That's
great.
true.
It's the kind of thing where I just never really think about doing that. But hi, I'm
It's-
Trog. In case you were wondering, I just sort of never expect that anybody that doesn't already know who we are is gonna like see anything.
Be watching this? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I just kind of forget that you are supposed to introduce yourself.
No, it's fine. The first 2 episodes are the pilots. We're still figuring the formula out. By
It's
now
true,
we've
it's
solidified
true.
it, so it's all good.
This is the
It's
first
true.
real episode.
Yes. Well, now I said who I am. Now you guys have to say who you are.
Oh, fuck.
You go.
Okay, I'm Holly.
And I'm Mike.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to all you listeners and some viewers. This is the first real episode of Columbo. We made it through the 2 pilots, and now here we are. And I believe...
It's the bold, beautiful year of 1971.
Yes, there was a 3-year gap between the first and second pilots, and then a 6-month gap between the second pilot and the first episode. So,
Yep.
much
All right, boys,
faster.
good work. Hit the ground running.
Yes. And I want to say I was thinking about this episode as I was watching it, as opposed to just staring at the screen and not thinking about anything, which isn't... It'd make for a pretty lousy podcast.
Which is what I usually do.
It's like, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention, actually.
Well, you know, that Columbo guy was in it.
That would be a really good podcast. Just like, hey, we're here to talk about like just like a rewatch podcast of some famous television show, and then every episode is like, oh yeah, this is the episode where that one happened. Yeah, I was on my phone most of the time. I was playing Clash of Clans.
Yeah, I have no idea. I wasn't paying attention at all. But okay, so if the first pilot is a play, and the second pilot is a movie, this episode is a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like you can in watching the second pilot and then this episode sort of back to back, I think you can see a little less money put into this one.
A little bit.
Just a little bit less money. Not quite as grandiose of a tale. Very not boring or anything, but maybe a little bit more subdued, less sets.
You say less budget. I say sensible filmmaking.
Right.
It was just filming on locations.
Yes, it was. They had about 3 or 4 locations, and they said this is enough to make 90 minutes. We can do that.
The episode's a little shorter. The content's a little leaner. We've got like a cast of like a couple of guys that appear.
Yeah, it's like there's like maybe 5 people in the entire episode with speaking lines.
And they're really good people that appear, to be fair, but yes. you can tell.
Yeah. So, you know, I dare to call it a downgrade from the second pilot, but it is certainly leaner. I like that as an adjective. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
It's much more lean.
Wasn't Mike.
Whoever said
Sorry.
it.
We
I
don't know who
apologize.
said it. We're trying to find out.
Whoever said it.
The introductions at the beginning meant nothing.
No,
Thank you to
already...
our mystery guest who has elucidated us.
I'm getting confused.
It's working.
So, this episode starts off with a tasteful little opening. You hear some typewriter noises. You get to see a car driving. There's a nice little shot where it goes from a bird's eye view of the street to sort of a pull back into an office. Oh, I suppose we should say this episode is directed by Mr. Steven Spielberg.
It's the fucking Spielberg episode.
It's a young Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, this is like before he becomes like famous and well known. This is one of the earlier things he worked on.
Yep, and I think it's pretty well directed, all things considered.
Episode was also written by one Steven. You'll forgive me if I'm butchering the pronunciation. I forgot to look up how you pronounce it. And also it's written differently in the credits than it is in like other places online.
Oh, perfect.
Steven Bochco?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce that either.
He is known for like writing and like concepting a bunch of like different legal and medical dramas. And fucking Doogie Howser MD.
Oh, close.
Oh, okay.
That's that guy.
I haven't seen that show, but I know it exists. So
I know nothing about it other than it's like a medical sitcom, and it's named fucking Doogie Howser.
It's about like a young doctor, right?
Yeah,
it's like a
it's
16-year-old doctor or something. Like a
young.
like a boy.
Yes,
Yeah, it's about like a boy
Neil,
genius.
Yeah, it's Neil Patrick Harris as a kid playing like a boy genius doctor.
Oh my god.
But we'll do that one after we're done with Columbo.
All right, thank you, Slab64 in chat, for confirming it's pronounced Botchko. Awesome.
All right.
Wonderful.
So anyway, I like the opening. It's nice. It's tasteful. And we see a man.
I like the we have just the typewriter sounds and literally nothing else until we get to like the thumping on the door. There's like 2 or 3 bits in the episode where they play with the audio like that, and it's fun.
Oh yeah, the audio in this episode is kind of crazy. Specifically the music. Mm-hmm. The music in this episode is kind of crazy style with it. It's very inspired.
Oh yeah.
So we see a guy driving a car, gets parks, pulls out, what's that? A gun. Uh-oh. Last time we saw somebody with a gun, they were using it very quickly.
That's usually what people do with those.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But there's a knock on the door. We don't know either of these characters yet. The man opens the door. Oh no! He's having a gun pointed at him. But it's okay. It's just a gun prank.
It's just a prank.
It's a classic gun prank that you pull on your friends when you show up to their office and point a gun at them.
My epic pistol prank.
But we see here.
With also, real quick, when we get like the shots of like the office, there are so many fucking skulls in this office.
You know what? I didn't even notice that.
There are like 3 or 4 skulls minimum. I think maybe more. This dude just has so many fucking skulls in his office.
That's a nice little bit of environmental storytelling, because as we find out, the man who is being pointed the gun at is not afraid, because he points out, deducing quickly that the person holding the gun is not wearing gloves, does not have his finger on the trigger, and the gun's not even loaded anyway. And it's a classic gun prank, and the man with the gun goes, you got me. I can't pull one over on you. I'm no good at practical jokes.
But you got to admit, I almost got you so good.
Which is quite funny.
Our wonderful man with gun is played by Jack Cassidy.
Yes.
Who was a famous Broadway actor and a Tony Award winner. Did a lot of like TV guest star spots in like different shows and series. This is his first time playing a murderer on Columbo. It will not be his last.
No.
A fun thing I learned about him today is that he was bisexual.
Hell yeah. Well, that kind of ties into the next scene, because I feel like this scene, once they're in the office, we still don't exactly know who these two people are, but they definitely know each other. There's some very homoerotic nearly vibes from this scene, I would say. Which is exacerbated by them saying, so Ken was the man with the gun. That's Jack Cassidy. And Jim, his partner, they refer to each other as partners a lot.
Right.
They say they're getting divorced. They say that they have kids. It's very gay.
There's comments about like cheating on his wife. They're talking about going down to like the cabin together to have the special fun that just boys have together.
Yes.
We'll have some drinks. We'll have a wild time together.
Listen, back when gay marriage was like an incredible social faux pas and incredibly illegal, people were way more comfortable about saying gay shit to each other, because there was like a tacit understanding like, we're not gay. No, of course not. So people were just saying gayer shit to each other just on the daily.
It's true.
I hope the Spock and Kirk girlies of the era were like fucking eating good with this episode.
There was probably one weirdo eating good with this episode.
Yeah.
God
Respect.
bless them.
You
bless
have
them
to
wherever
salute
they are.
our historic heroes.
It's great. I really like this scene. One thing that I really like, I only caught this on my second viewing, and I had to rewind and watch it 5 times in a row. So Ken has brought a bottle of champagne to celebrate. They sort of allude to that they were having an argument. Him and Jim were having an argument, and now they're kind of making amends. Ken has brought a bottle of champagne. As he opens the bottle of champagne, the cork pops out, and he looks genuinely surprised. I do not think you go back, watch the episode. Pay close attention. He doesn't even like twist anything or pull it off. The cork just shoots off. He looks genuinely surprised. I had to watch it 5 times in a row because I was so entertained. And he does a great job of like not ruining the take either. He's like, oh, and then he just keeps on going. He like pours a glass. It's like, that is a goddamn professional.
He plays it so cool.
Jack Cassidy is like a fucking master of facial expressions in this episode.
Yes. I am a big fan. I mean, like you said, he shows up in multiple other. I mean, does he play the most murderers in Columbo? He has to, right? He plays like 3,
4,
at least 4. Yeah, that has to be the most, right?
I think.
You think Columbo would like after like 3 times? You think he'd see the guy and be like, "Damn, you again?"
It's him and his quadruplet brothers. They're all twins. There's a lot of them running around.
Then there's a twin episode, and you think after the twin episode, anytime you saw another twin, it's like, nope, I got you. You're part of some deeply involved murder plot.
Detective, please. Though my family has a long and beloved history of crime, it doesn't mean that I'm taking up the family business.
So we have Ken and we have Jim. They're 2 halves of a famous writing duo for the illustrious Miss Melville series of mystery novels.
The other actor who is playing our other writer is Martin Milner, who is mostly known from the 1960s CBS series Route 66. And then in the 90s, he retired from acting to become a radio host for a show about fishing.
Hey, why not? I will say, I feel like, I don't know if this isn't like this is maybe not even so far as to be a rule of thumb, but I feel like in general in Columbo, the more famous person usually dies. Like if they have 2 guests, the person who is more famous will be getting killed because that means that they're on screen for less time. It's not always true. It's not always true. But
this time Jack Cassidy is the one like, eating it all up.
And that makes sense because you got to start off with a bang, right? You got to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume back in the day, Jack Cassidy was a bit more of a known quantity, perhaps, than in 2025.
Probably.
So, Ken and Jim, definitely not gay. Definitely just a writing duo.
Making a big deal about how I'm going to kidnap you and you're going to be my first male guest at my
I'm glad you brought up both of those. I have both of those lines written verbatim in my notes. Ken says, now I'm going to kidnap you and I want to bring you to my cabin as my first male guest.
It's such a funny, specific way of wording that. It's wonderful.
Yep. So they leave. Ken manages to convince Jim to kind of sort of blow off his wife and just come drive an hour away with him to his cabin in San Diego.
Yeah,
a couple hours, actually. Probably like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. I know you got a dinner date with her tonight, but just tell her you're busy with me.
Which is really weird because they don't really say that they're going to, like, do anything. He's just kind of like, yeah, why don't you come down to my cabin? We'll just, I don't know, sit around or something.
We'll have the special time together that all boys have.
Yes, before we get a divorce, a writing divorce.
Before our divorce.
Our divorce, which is now on amicable terms. I've wined and dined you. It's fine.
So they leave the office, go down to the car. Ken says, "Oh shoot, I left my lighter. Let me go back and get it real quick." Goes back into the office and just trashes the place.
Wrecks it.
Just
fucks it up.
Just really knocks over books, throws papers everywhere. I feel like perhaps in later episodes of Columbo, they almost try to keep it more, or they try to keep you guessing longer who's going to murder who in the later seasons of Columbo. Specifically when they come back in the 90s. I feel like a lot of those beginnings, you're meeting all these characters like, all right, who's going to murder who? These
they
earlier
play with
ones,
it more then.
yeah, these earlier ones, they're very much like, oh no, you already know like who's gonna be the murderer. Like there's no guesswork involved.
One guy started the episode by pointing a gun at the other guy.
Exactly.
I was just kidding, but you know.
Well, see, that would have been
a
crazy rug pull, right? If it turned out it was the other way around. But
there's this one bit that he does like right before he goes back to the office and trashes it, which is like. So I think some of the best Columbo episodes are the ones that feel kind of cartoonish, and this one kind of leans into that a bit, where he's like, "All right, bud, look at this. I got an important list for you to look at." Huh? What is this? It's a list of names. Oh, sorry, wrong paper. Anyways, I got to go back up to the office just so he can get like fingerprints on it from the both of them.
It's the kind of thing where it's. I don't even think you can really call it a Chekhov's gun. It's more just like anytime there's something that the camera focuses on or something that somebody does where you're like, why'd they do that? It's usually in service of creating an alibi, which is, you know, it's smart. I think it makes sense to sort of build up the alibi.
Yeah, they want you to be like Columbo and like notice all these little weird things that stand out. And you go, huh, that's weird. And then in execution, sometimes you're watching and it's just like, oh, a weird thing happened. Well, what's next?
Yep. I think the longer that you watch Columbo, the more you clue in where if something seems like it doesn't matter, it matters a lot at some point. And you kind of get the feel for the ebb and flow of how they dole out the clues over the course of an episode, and you see something and you go, oh, that's definitely going to be important. There's no reason they would zoom in on that if that's not going to be important, which we get one of those clues. We get one of those later in the episode as well, where it very specifically zooms in on something where you're like, why are you showing me this? And then maybe 10 to 15 minutes later, it's like it's commanding you like, don't forget. So he goes up, trashes the room. They leave for the cabin. This is where we get the first piece of music in this episode, which I just have it written down as crazy style because it's sinister. Wacky. It's some cool, crazy, weird, like it's not like, you know, atonal or anything, but it is very odd. It's a very odd soundtrack.
It's the music of the evil wizard in his tower, like brewing a foul potion with which to throw it like God or whatever. And they're just playing it while they're taking this beautiful car ride through an idyllic woodland. Yep.
And it's
great.
It's really building up. I mean, you know this guy is gonna die. Well, actually, maybe you don't, because there's a possibility you've never seen Columbo before at this point since it's the first episode, but
you don't know it's a murder mystery.
You don't know exactly what's going to happen, perhaps, but we know it's going to happen.
Maybe you were just born. Maybe you were just born last week and this is the first TV you've ever watched.
That's true. So they drive out into the country, make a quick stop at Lysenka's Country Store, which is a nice little
Lysenka.
place. I really like this little this little abode. It feels very nice. I wish I could visit that. I'm gonna guess it no longer exists, but
probably.
It's a wonderful little. I don't even know if the inside is a set. I'm assuming they filmed on location somewhere. I don't know if it's in San Diego or what, but I'd love to visit.
The filming locations of this episode.
So while there, Ken leaves the owner of the store, Miss Lysenka, leaves her a signed book, which I believe is actually a book called Prescription Murder, which is kind of fun, you know?
The first Columbo episode in universe is written by these two dudes, and it's about an old lady instead.
That's awesome.
Another fun detail is Lysenka is played by Barbara Colby. Actually, I guess thinking about it, this is less fun considering how this is going to end. Barbara Colby was a Broadway actress. And this episode of Columbo was like her first important role on TV. Then she got like a bunch of like guest and supporting roles throughout until the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where she played I think it was a prostitute character that like came back for more than one episode, and then they build her to be like a main recurring character in a spin-off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And then in 1975, she's just tragically shot and killed in a drive-by shooting in a parking lot.
Yeah,
They never
I
found
looked that
who
up
did it.
too. It's a real, a bit. It's an unsolved mystery. It's really weird.
She died very young.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too because, and I mean, we'll see more. We'll talk and discuss more about this character later because she shows back up. Spoiler alert. But I really like how this character is played. It's a
she does a really fucking good job.
It's like a very unnerving character. Like
she plays it off as first just like, oh, this person is like, a really overzealous, like, not even really, just like kind of overzealous, like, fan of this author, this like small town girl who's starstruck. And then you get later on into the episode and it's like, oh, lady, you're a fucking sleazeball. You're a creep. This is great.
Yeah, it's played wonderfully and just kind of like bordering on creepy, a little unnerving. It's very nuanced. I like it a lot. I think she does a great job. And like I said, we'll talk more about her later. Put a bookmark in that.
Having looked up the filming locations, this is kind of what I expected. All the parts filmed in San Diego, quote unquote, are in Big Bear, which is a very idyllic. I mean, you if you've watched the episode, you've seen what it looks like. A very idyllic, naturey sort of part that's like about an hour outside of Los Angeles, a bit closer than because it's really funny because like I'm sure there are parts like inland of San Diego that look like this, but like I look at that and I'm like, that doesn't look like San Diego at all. And like looking this up, I'm like, oh yeah, it does look like Big Bear. That's exactly where this is. Like,
right.
It's like idyllic mountainside. Like when it's snowing up there, people go skiing and stuff like that. It's that sort of place.
Makes sense. I mean, it does look lovely.
Someone in chat is comparing Lysenka to the like proprietress of the diner in Alan Wake. It's
a little bit.
Imagine if Alan Wake was hitting on her and then she got a spin-off DLC about how she knows Alan Wake killed a bunch of people 10 years ago. But don't worry, she'll protect him.
I've not played Alan Wake, so I'm going to take your word for it. Maybe I should play Alan Wake. Is Alan Wake like Columbo? Their writer. He's a writer. Columbo's a detective.
It's more like Twin Peak.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Twin Peaks is kind of like Columbo in that I think David Lynch really hated Columbo and despised everything that this show stood for. But that's part of the reason why I love it. So while at Lysenka's country store, Ken starts to build his alibi. He goes into the back, uses the phone. Okay, so this is maybe somebody with a bit more information about how phone systems worked in the 70s can put all this together. There is a lot of phone usage in this episode, a lot of calling operators, and I just don't know how any of that worked. I'm not sure what the difference is between calling an operator and calling a number directly. I don't know why you'd pick one over the other, but it's kind of an important point in this episode. So yeah, I don't know how it works.
From what I understand, it was just predominantly like convention before, like beforehand you would like need to call an operator to like get a phone call to anywhere. But I feel like when like calling directly became a thing, it's just like people sort of carried on defaulting to like calling an operator rather than just like, oh, I remembered the number, like, because otherwise you got to look it up, right? Like you got to open a phone book, you got to like check what the number is and stuff like that. There's a point where like we'll get to it in just a minute, but there's another point where that cracks me up with how times have changed since the 70s.
Yes, there's a lot of fun little time warp effects in this episode. With phones and airports, which are pretty much the two main things that you're going to find watching these 70 episodes is like people treat phones differently and people treat airports differently. And those are the things that have changed the most in 50 years. So anyway, Ken calls Jim's wife, Joanna, from the store and tells her that him and Jim have patched things up. He tells Joanna that he left Jim at his office and that he's spending the week at his cabin alone. So, already setting up the alibi here. They ultimately arrive at Ken's lovely cabin in San Diego or wherever. And Ken begins to put his ultimate plan into action. Something I noticed about this scene, this is probably something else that was not strange in 1970. Did anybody else notice that the couch that Jim sits on is already covered in plastic wrap?
That's
yes. Did they call attention to it? I don't think they did.
No, they don't call attention to it at all.
That's crazy. I kind of like glanced over this episode a little bit as part of my rewatch. I could have sworn there was some like, hey, why do you have a plastic cover on your couch?
No, because
dude?
This is like,
I noticed it on my second viewing. I was like, wait, was that like something they did in the 70s?
This is just like an old-fashioned thing. Like, I had a friend in like elementary school who had like very, how do I put this? Very traditional Italian grandparents. And so like a bunch of their furniture just had like covers on it to keep it from getting like dirty.
That is like a legitimate thing. Like if you have like a summer home or like an away home, like to prevent
this was just
dust
in their
from
normal
getting
house
on it.
though.
It's so funny how much it looks like the couch covers from like American Psycho right before he kills Paul.
Literally,
in that room.
yes.
In my fucking notes, I wrote down as a joke they're ripping off American Psycho.
I like that. I'm very glad I'm not the only person that noticed. I'm glad we all independently noticed the weird plastic cover on the couch where a guy is definitely about to get murdered.
And they're like making all these little like comments, like they're driving down to the place, and man who's about to die is like, you know, I'm having this weird sense of deja vu right now. They get in. They're talking about like, you know, having a couple drinks together, and he's like, "Oh no, come on, man, don't corrupt me with your vile ways." And it's at this point I'm realizing this motherfucker has been drunk driving, because they also drank like in the office.
That's another thing that happens multiple times in this episode is people drinking alcohol and then getting into a car.
Classic.
The deja vu line is very that is like I really like that, because that is the most foreshadowing ever, because that takes place like 3 minutes into the episode and does not come back until literally the third to the last line of dialogue in the episode.
It's a fun little nudge, like, isn't this funny? It's like the setup for a murder mystery. And then you get to the literal last second of the episode and it's like, oh, fuck.
Yep. It's pretty good. A fun line. So Ken convinces Jim to call his wife from the cabin's phone, pretending to be in the office, sort of completing the setup he made for himself with his last phone call. There's usage of the telephone, which is beyond my comprehension because I don't understand how phones worked back then, where he calls and tries to go through the operator, right? And then he tries to go through the operator and Ken is like, "No, you dolt," and like hangs up the phone and is like, "No, you gotta call her normally or else, you know, she's gonna know that you're here." It's like you've never
cheated on your wife or something. Here's how you be devious about it.
Exactly. That's a fun little exchange.
My favorite detail about that exchange, and this is the part that made me go, wow, times have changed, is that he says like, no, don't go through the operator, just dial the number directly. The area code is 213. That is so big. Okay, I don't know how this works in the rest of the country. Do the rest of you guys, you have to dial the area code whenever you call anyone, right?
At least in Canada, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to
if you're calling, but it didn't
10 numbers, like no matter what, right?
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way. They changed that like a bit over 20 years ago. You used, if you were calling within the same area code, you would just dial the 7 numbers to get to within the area code. So you, and granted, Los Angeles has like fucking, I think, more area codes than like most US cities, but like you used to just know the 7 numbers to get, you know, around the corner. And if you were going outside of the area code, you'd have to specify the area code to say like, yeah, we're going to this one. And then they changed it like 20 plus years ago sometime, and it was like, even if you're calling within the same area code, you have to dial that. So the idea of him saying your area code is this, like he doesn't know his own damn area code, is so fucking funny to me, because it's like, he might not have, like he's probably being especially thorough, but it's like, so you know, your own area code is 213.
It's very odd. Yeah, I that totally flew over my head. I was just like, anytime somebody picked up a phone in the beginning of this episode, I was like, I almost don't know what's going on. Like, it's a good thing I know the basic function of a telephone, because they're using it in ways that are incongruous with how I understand telephones to function. So he convinces Jim to call his wife, which he does, and in the middle of the phone call, Ken pulls out a gun and shoots him.
Bang!
This is such a crazy part of his plan, because it's all if Jim just goes, Ken, wait, bang, like that whole, it would have spoiled everything.
That's he had to have impeccable timing for sure to pull this one off. And this is not the last time we will see somebody murdered while on a phone in Columbo. It happens quite a bit, I believe. I can think of at least one or two other times. There's probably even more than that.
They love getting them that way. They love having like recorded evidence of it.
It does make it convenient for Columbo whenever there's phone records. I feel like in a lot of these early Columbo seasons, there's at least one scene where Columbo goes, well, I checked the phone records and blah, 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 blah. It's like always a part of his MO.
And the murderer is always so like hurt and offended and shocked by it. And Columbo's just like, well, yeah, but it's normal procedure.
This is my job.
I gotta do what I gotta do.
This is what we do at the place where I work to investigate the things that I do.
So Ken has committed the murder, and Joanna has overheard the murder. And so now we jump to back to Jim's office. Joanna is there. No, we don't.
Before that,
I forgot.
There's this really good shot where he's going out to his car, like to the trunk, to get like a fucking sack to put the body in or whatever, and then the phone starts ringing because she calls him at the cabin to be like, oh my god, he got shot. And there's this really good shot where like the camera is like real low down and he's like walking back into the cabin and like the camera's still like panning down a little bit, and it like focuses like super in the foreground on this big bright yellow "Have a nice day" bumper sticker on his car.
I totally did not. I totally missed that.
I love the way that shot is framed. Immediately afterwards, he picks up the phone and he's like,
all right, Joanne, calm down. Don't worry. It was probably just a prank.
Yeah. That is another thing.
Looking at his dead body.
That's another Columbo trope, is the murderer immediately having a conversation with somebody after they murder somebody and being like, oh, I bet it was nothing. Or
it's probably
it's either
fine.
I bet it was nothing, or oh my gosh, that's so awful. What just happened? You know.
It's so sad, the tragedy that has happened today. And then he pours a fucking drink and
gets
does
in his car
to the corpse.
Yep.
And then gets in his car.
He's having a great day so far.
Oh yeah, it's a miracle this man has as small a body count as he does, considering how he's fucking driving.
That's true. It could be so much worse.
People really just like didn't give a shit. Like I was
Were
just
they
looking
even
up
wearing
something.
seatbelts in the car scenes? I wasn't even
God,
paying
no,
attention.
They didn't have seatbelts. They didn't have seatbelts until like the fucking 90s.
I guess so. Yeah.
It goes
That's
into
crazy.
like just like the general public's responsibility for children. Like just even up until the 80s, the idea of like putting your kid in a car seat so that they didn't get like fucking decimated during a car accident, that just did not happen for the longest time. So nowadays, like the other day I saw like someone driving a car and they had like a fucking 5-year-old in their passenger seat, and I was like mortified. But like probably back in the 70s, that would have been like, whatever.
Yeah, maybe they're just
Wouldn't
a
bat
time
an eye.
traveler. Maybe they just hopped forward in time.
My toddler's getting a tipple of sherry too. What's the issue?
They'll be all right.
If I'm drinking, she's drinking.
So now we go back to Jim's office. Joanna is there. She's answering questions from the police and is not having a good time.
They're treating her like she's being fucking delusional, and she's freaking the fuck out about it.
It's great because I have the time written down. 18 minutes in, Columbo finally arrives. We get to see Columbo 18 minutes in. Pretty average time for maybe slightly longer than average time for time to Columbo, the TTC. And I really like the contrast here where you see how the quote unquote normal police officers are treating Joanna, and then you see how Columbo treats Joanna, and it's very different. Columbo is very soft, very like I'm not gonna ask you any questions. You've had a bad day. Let's get you back home. You know, being
let's get you some air. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, being very
I like
human
how they,
about it.
Yeah, I like how they contrast that really well, but it's especially funny in contrast with the previous episode where like this woman is like being interrogated about like the murder that just happened, and everyone's like, oh, you poor woman, here, let's do it. And then this time she's like, I heard him get shot on the phone, and they're like, what, are you sure? Like, what is like, and they're like deliberately like cutting really fast and like surrounding her and making everything feel really closed in to make it feel anxiety inducing. Meanwhile, the last one, it's like 5 men in a house like, oh, whatever you say, ma'am.
Yeah,
you see the difference is one of them was rich.
That's a good point, actually. Well, I assume Joanna was probably decently well off with her husband.
Oh,
but
she wasn't living in like a mansion.
She's in like a middle class house.
Yeah.
She has plausible wealth deniability.
So Columbo is like, hey, let's not ask any more questions. You look like you're having a rough time. Let's just go back. I'll drive you home. They go back home. This scene is really funny.
Right before they do that, there's this great bit where he's like, oh, you know, we'll take you out of here. He mentions like the writing partners, and Joanna's like, yeah, partners, I guess.
Partners.
Yeah.
And like Columbo makes like a little face like, well, that's weird, and then goes into like a little minute-long spiel about like elevator buttons and how they're a marvel.
Yeah, he's like, I love these newfangled elevator buttons. You don't even have to press them. They just go off of the heat of your hand.
And I'll make you an omelet, by the way.
Yes, so then we get the famous omelet scene, which I'm not gonna lie, I think this scene is fun. It's cool. I like to see Columbo, you know, being you like to see Columbo humanized, you know, like that's what makes him such an endearing character. However, for this scene, this is gonna be such a random pull, but hopefully one of you two know what I'm talking about. There's an old as fuck internet post that's like a green text story that's like, oh, what would you do if you saw this woman having a bad time on the street? And somebody's like, yeah, I would take her home and I would force her to eat. I would like make her dinner. I would make her eggs and I would force her to eat eggs. And it's like, you have to eat all the eggs. I'm sorry. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm so sorry. But that's all I could think about for this scene was you have to eat all the eggs. I apologize if you have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. Just look up you have to eat all the eggs and it might show up.
Smash Mouth, you have to eat all the eggs.
Anyway, that's what this scene reminds me of because Columbo's like, I don't know how to cook, but I make a great omelet. And she's like, I'm not really hungry. And he just keeps on making the eggs.
We get the first wife mention of the episode where he's like, oh, I don't know how to cook for shit, but I make a damn good omelet. Even my wife agrees with me. Yep. He does a funny little joke, a great little goof and a spoof. Thank you, Peter Falk. Where he's like, here's the trick to making a really good omelet. No eggs, all milk.
That probably knocked him dead in 1970, whatever.
What are the real humdingers of the age? You gotta be real.
So Columbo is just kind of building a rapport with Joanna. Classic Columbo stuff. And once they get to talking, once you know, he calms her down, makes her feel at ease, she sort of lets on based off of that comment she made earlier that Holly pointed out about how the whole partners comment. She kind of lets Columbo know that Ken hasn't even written any of the books that they're famous for, or hasn't in a very long time, at least. And Jim's been doing all the writing, and Ken just does the publicity. And it's at that point you can you can pinpoint the exact moment where Columbo is like, all right, I know who did it. It's like, okay, fucking case closed. I know exactly who committed this murder.
It's like, I feel like you could rate episodes based off of like a threshold of, because there's a couple episodes where like Columbo doesn't immediately know who does it or who's done it, and then or like sometimes he even gets it wrong later in the episode. But there's episodes like this that are like such a softball. Like he's interviewing the wife, and it's like, oh yeah, the writing partner, he actually had every reason to kill my husband, who mysteriously has just gone missing, and the last person who saw him was that guy. And Columbo's like, oh, is that so? And then the guy shows up, and it's like, what are you doing, you bumbling detective? If this were our fictional character from our Agatha Christie novel, she would have had this solved already.
Yep.
You know what this is? This is a professional killing. And Columbo's like, oh, is that so?
Yep.
That's very interesting, sir.
Wow.
Why don't
Could you tell me more,
sir?
Tell me more about it.
I would love a beautiful mind like yours helping me solve the mystery, sir.
Oh, clearly you know so much better than me.
Yes, I suppose we should point out that the body, I mean, obviously they did not find the body at the office because we know where he was killed. So they're not exactly sure if it's a murder yet or if it's just a disappearance or what. All they know is that there was a gunshot. So Ken arrives at Joanna's house, and
there's a great line like right before he shows up where like they're talking about like, you know, the books and like how they're like best-selling mysteries, and Columbo makes this little comment like, oh, mysteries, those are tricky, I can never figure those out on my own.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else is funny? It's something I actually just realized is this might be one of the few times in Columbo that I can think of where a famous person, book, TV show, chef, really any sort of famous thing is brought up, and Columbo doesn't immediately go, oh yeah, my wife, she loves that. He just straight up is like, oh yeah, I've never heard of these books before, which is extremely rare in Columbo, I will say.
That's why he doesn't get him right away. He just has suspicions.
It's always in every single episode after this, I swear, anytime anything famous is brought up, Columbo is quick to say, oh yeah, my wife loves that.
Yeah, my wife is a real big fan of everyone who's ever committed a crime.
Exactly. But that doesn't happen this episode. Very very unusual. They hadn't invented it yet.
There's very few mentions of the wife in this episode. Like, I like keeping track of them, and there's like maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, not that many. So
wife-heavy episode.
So Ken shows up at Joanna's house and does this annoying thing where he compares Columbo to Miss Melville like 3 times, like just kind of berating him over and over, like, oh, what do you do? Miss Melville would have solved this in an instant. Which of course is all part of his plan. He's sort of makes an attempt to throw Columbo off of his trail preemptively by trying to convince him that Jim was killed by a, quote, professional killer.
You cop boys are fucking around. Miss Melville would have known right away this was organized crime.
Yep.
And like Columbo
she would have. Would she? Tell me why.
Columbo immediately going, oh, well, that's really cool. Could you tell me more? Knowing like right away that this dude is so full of hog shit.
Yep. So we get a nice little commercial break at that point. When we come back, they are back at Jim's office. Ken is showing Columbo a list of names of the biggest crime bosses that
the weird
planted.
List that he pulled out at the start and like gave to his buddy to like hold that he get prints on it. So when Columbo is like, well, why are you just taking the evidence with like no precautions? He's like, well, you know, this is a list Jim and I were touching all the time. Our prints would be all over it.
Yep. So a bit of planted subterfuge by Ken. He sort of explains that Jim was, or he less explains, more tries to get Columbo to buy that Jim was researching an expose on organized crime, and that's why they were going to break up as writing partners, is because Ken claims that Jim wanted to do more serious writing, which he claims was an expose. Columbo is doing his best dumb guy act in this scene. Like he's
putting
laying
the puppy
it on,
dog eyes on. He's blinking so sweetly.
Thick, so
no one's doing
thick.
it like this guy.
He's just standing around. He's like doe-eyed, just like, oh, I don't know. I need all the help I can get. Gosh, I'm so bad at being a detective. Please help me.
His cuteness is maximum. He is doing the moe through helplessness bit. And he's fallen for it hook, line, and sinker because, like, this something I really like all throughout this episode is is our good friend the murderer. I'm so bad at remembering the names of the characters. You'll have to forgive me. Guy who did the killing.
Ken.
Ken, thank you. Something I really like throughout the entire episode, every single problem that he has in his life in this episode is entirely his own fucking fault. He is constantly bringing all of this shit onto himself. He is addicted to it. He can't help it. Right up to like the literal final twist of the episode.
Yep. He's sort of it's almost that he like over prepares his alibi in a way that makes it easier to poke holes in rather than being helpful to his case.
All of this stuff is definitely true. I know it because I'm the smart murder writer guy. Here, I'll give you like all this evidence that they definitely just have lying around. Funny that.
Yes, I think Ken makes a fatal error here in this scene where he gives Columbo a bunch of books, which is really a rookie mistake. You should never, ever give Columbo a reason to come back to talk to you.
It's true.
If you've done a murder, that is a rookie mistake when dealing with Columbo. Do not give him or let him borrow anything from you.
We get one of our first like, hey, that's kind of weird. That stands out to me. That's funny moments where Ken is so like insistent, like, yep, the reason why the body isn't here is because if there's no body around, then they can't ever prove that like a murder happened. Clearly that's why they did it, because they're professionals. And Columbo just right away is like, well, why would a professional killer care about that at all? He'd be out of here already. He'd be gone without a trace.
Yep. Lots of this episode is a lot of little details. Very much so.
We get our next little that's a weird moment like immediately afterwards where we have the list of all history's famous gangsters that are still at large.
Yep.
Our famous rogues gallery, and Columbo's like, why is it folded like that? If this is like some shit that he had typed up to like have on hand, why is it folded like something you would put in your pocket? Gee, that's kind of funny. And Ken is just like, well, he loved reading and bookmarks, so he used all kinds of things as bookmarks all the time. So just ignore it. Read all my books, by the way.
Yeah.
He said the first nice thing to Columbo when he pointed that out. He's like, you're starting to think like Miss Melville. Like, maybe you are a real detective.
I was getting annoyed at this point with how often Ken was bringing up Miss Melville. I was like, shut up. Like...
you didn't even write the books, bro. Shut up.
It's great.
I know. It's like somebody just constantly telling you, like, it's like, man, I get it, man. All right, you like Miss Melville. That's fine.
He's a great slimeball this episode.
Oh yeah,
he's
for sure.
so good at it. The thing that I wish happened in this episode was I wish we got a little bit more about, I don't know how they would have fucking done it, because I think it would be real fucking weird for the pacing. But like, I wish there was a little bit more about like who Mrs. Melville is as this fictional character instead of just, yep, she's really good at solving the crime and she would have known it.
Yeah, I feel like in a later season of Columbo, if this was transplanted then, the contents of the books would be way more relevant to solving the crime kind of thing. In this one, it's sort of just like a framing device to, establish what the characters are. It doesn't really, like, the contents of the novels don't play into the plot in the way that I feel
episodes
like...
are much more grounded. Just kind of like... I feel like later in the show's life, they get more and more, like, there has to be some kind of, like, very convoluted, funny thing that happens.
Yeah, this
episode
is still goofy as fuck, but in like in a less zany way, I suppose.
There's not as many like specifically written jokes. Like there are definitely some comedic lines, but much less humorous on the like, I am writing these lines between these characters to elicit a laugh from the audience.
It's more the happenstances in this episode are kind of funny if you stop and think about it for like more than a couple of seconds, and less like, and then a weird eccentric guy appear.
Yeah. So right before Columbo leaves, he does a one more thing. This is crazy to me. This is another one that This exchange sounds like utter insanity in 2025, but I guess it makes sense back in 1970, whatever. Before Columbo leaves, he brings up that he finds it strange that Ken drove back from San Diego to LA instead of taking an airplane, which I'm willing to suspend my disbelief as somebody living 50 years in the future that made sense back then, but that just sounds insane in 2025. Like, well, why didn't you just take an airplane back? It's like, have you been to the fucking airport? You could have been back here in like 2
hours.
Like, are you fucking kidding? That's insane.
That's so funny.
And of course, Ken blows it off with the classic, well, people do act strange, huh, defense. Where he's just like, oh, you know, I was in such shock. I just wasn't thinking clearly. You're right. I should have taken a plane, but you know, whenever you add up all the time to go to the airport and drive there and back, are you really saving that much time?
People do the darndest thing when they're distressed about their friend who has just died.
Yeah, prepare yourself for that defense happening at least 2 times an episode, every single episode.
There's another one coming later, this one.
Yeah, exactly.
They either hit him with the, I mean, I don't know, I was fucked up, or they hit him with the, like, 3 levels ahead over-explaining, and either way, it makes Columbo go,
Yep. So, after that, Columbo leaves. Ken drives home, and then plants Jim's dead body in his own front yard, and phones Columbo to tell him about the body being found. Which
he's
seems
like
a little strange.
Little bit.
I'm not sure exactly what his overall goal was in doing that. It seems to me like he would have been better off keeping the body undiscovered, but I don't know. I guess in the end it didn't really matter.
He gets to it eventually, but it is a little funny that he didn't just, like, I don't know, bury that shit deep somewhere.
I know so it must have been his plan all along to do that, because if not, he would have gotten rid of the body immediately, right? So
I mean, we do kind of get to, like, the why of it, like, right at the end, but it is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So he's, like, stumbling into his house, he's, like, slowly ambling through his mail, and this is when we get our
Columbo Horse Watch update. At approximately 30 minutes and 7 seconds into the episode, there is a small figurine of a horse on the countertop next to some bottles and his phone.
I'm glad to say
your Columbo Horse Watch update.
I was looking and I did notice it this time. I saw the horse and I was happy. I was happy that I saw the horse. I was like, oh, look, there it is. There's the horse.
The horse has been detected.
Got a horse.
I think you get an even better shot of it a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So Ken drives home, plants Jim's dead body, phones Columbo. The police show up. Columbo is invited inside. He's sort of looking around. Ken's got a nice place, got a lot of art, fancy looking house.
His place is huge. He's got so many original works of art, not like, you know, copies or anything, like the actual originals. And he's got, like, this big stack of fucking bills on the countertop.
Yeah.
That, like, at one point, Columbo immediately zooms into, like, a fucking, like a hawk spotting a tasty little mouse on the floor.
Yep. Columbo prods Ken a bit, brings up the fact that, oh, well, you know, what happens to the series now that Jim is dead? Do you get any of that? And Ken's like, no, it goes to his wife, not to me. But then Columbo brings up, well, as a writing duo, maybe you had each other insured. And Ken does not respond to that one. He just kind of sidesteps it.
It's so funny. We get like,
so do you get to keep all the royalties?
Oh, no. That goes to the widow.
So what about the insurance?
How about we stop talking for a little while?
Yeah, how about we go over here into my living room and sit down for a minute?
Do you like my art?
You want some booze? You want to look at some high class?
So Ken insists that the body being on his lawn sort of proves the professional killer theory, claiming that it's a scare tactic from the mob, which does line up. It's logical because the mob
The theory that
wouldn't-
only he proposed and only he had suggested was a
Right.
possibility.
Yes. But at least it's not completely ludicrous, you know.
Yeah.
If a professional killer wanted to off this guy and thought that they were writing partners, then they would assume they would be writing the expose together. The mob wouldn't have any clue that they had already decided to no longer write together, to divorce each other.
Right.
So, you know, sort of Ken continuing to try to bolster his or you know, plant the seeds of falsehood in Columbo's mind, which is very clearly not really working, but
No,
I
not
mean,
at
what else
all.
is Ken gonna do at this point? Like, he's already brought the fucking corpse to his house. Like, what do you like? At this point, you're locked in to this whole charade.
He's like shoveling all this info and like cause onto Columbo. Like, yep, here's the body right now. Yep, we know that they killed him. We know why they killed him. We know why they're bringing him here to scare me off. Well, good luck finding the killer. I bet that's going to be real difficult for you. You're going to have such a real hard time. Columbo just gets up and shuffles towards the bills and is like, well, you told me you got in and called me right away. Why were you shuffling through your mail? That doesn't seem like something I would do if I saw a dead body of my friend on the lawn. I would be scrambling. I'd go for the call right away. I wouldn't be looking through my mail.
There is a knockout, like 2 lines in a row that I love here. One is a classic Columbo moment where we get a shot with Ken and Columbo. They're very close to each other. Ken leans in and says, "You've got a body, you've got a motive, but you're never going to find that killer." And Columbo just responds, "It's not gonna be easy." Just like they do this so much. I love it when Columbo and the murderer are like nearly touching noses and exchanging lines like that.
There's another shot like earlier in this episode that's like really like you can sort of like from a directorial viewpoint, it's really funny. Like they're kind of like out a ways and then they like very decidedly walk right up to the camera, get right up close to it to look at each other, which is like it feels natural when you're watching it, but when you're rewatching it and applying that eye, it's just kind of like it's so close for comfort. It's really funny.
I love that they're doing this shit and we have like all the stuff from like the intro of the episode, and this isn't even one of the most homoerotic Columbo episodes.
Oh no. It gets
It's
much
tame
more.
as far as that goes.
There's one in the 90s season that I can't wait to get to in 30 years when we get there.
Oh yeah.
It's got the gayest subtext of Eddie Columbo. There's literally an episode with a gay person in it. It's not as gay as the episode where they talk about being in Ugandan prison together.
Oh my god.
I love that episode. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that in about 60 episodes from now.
Right.
Anyway, so here's the second line, and I here's another thing that I really only caught on the second viewing, and I thought it was really weird. I'm not sure what was going on, but the end result is so funny to me. So Columbo's getting ready to leave. He gets up, goes to the counter. I have it written down here. He says, "Would you go over for me once again? I know you did it in ADR." But it's like, I don't think I can. Let me like try to say it like how it's edited in the program. He's like, "Would you go over for me once again? I know you did it. Exactly what happened when you came home tonight." Like it's edited so weirdly, and it's obviously ADR to cover up either like a line that they didn't like or a flub or something like that. And the like editing in "I know you did it" like that was cracking me up. Like it's so
subliminal messaging.
It's funny. In my notes I have written down, it's a fucking subliminal message. Subliminal message. I was like, what? Like, what a strange editing decision. Like, but it was cracking me up.
Now, I know you gave me some of these details already, but I must confess, some things just don't add up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, like Holly said, Columbo points out that it's weird that there's all these bills on Ken's counter, that they're open, and like, oh, why would you bother opening bills? And
Why were you sifting through that?
And yeah, and Ken's like, I don't know. I was in shock. What do you want?
IDK, LOL.
The best, the thing that like cracks me the fuck up about that is like, he's like, oh well, I don't know, I just did it to distract myself. And Columbo goes, yeah. I was like, oh, I see. Yeah, bills are very distracting. Anyway, I'll let you know if I hear anything. Like basically just saying, that's weird. All right, bye.
Yeah.
Huh,
Bills are
we'll
very
see ya.
distracting.
Bills are very distracting. Anyway, see you later. And then it's like he walks out and it like zooms in on the killer's face, like, oh fuck, he's gonna get me.
See, it's this great jump, which I guess probably at the time on TV there was like a cut to commercial at this moment where you get like this like shot of his face just like in like kind of like shadowed a bit. They play with shadows in some fun ways with like faces in this episode. Just like sitting kind of thinking like gulp. Like, oh, he's on to me. I gotta fucking do something. Fade to black. Immediately cut to a giant novelty hot dog shaped hot dog stand called Tail of the Pup.
Yes.
I had to look it up. It's apparently still there.
No
Fuck
way.
yes.
Oh my
I
gosh.
need
This
to
is
know.
I gotta
even
do
better.
the California Columbo tour.
Even
gotta-
better. This is also on Santa Monica Boulevard. It is like a scant few blocks. It is a walk away from Ben's original beanery or whatever that place
Oh
was.
No
my
way.
God.
You have one for lunch and one
Barney's
for dinner.
Beanery. Yeah, you
Barney's
can literally.
Beanery.
They're like less than a mile away. They're like literally 2 blocks away from each other, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah, I was
Next
watching.
time I'm in fucking California, I gotta go.
You
I
got it.
love this hot dog shaped hot dog stand. I had a food genius moment watching this episode where I saw them eating a hot dog and I instantly wanted to eat a hot dog so bad.
Yeah.
This episode is subliminally messaging that I should eat a hot dog because I
What a
got so
great way.
hungry.
Tail of
What a
the Pup
great way
as
to make you want a
taken
hot dog.
in Google Street View from last year.
Oh my
Fuck
god,
yes.
it's still the same fucking novelty shape and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yes.
like kept it together. I was like, like when I was watching the episode or rewatching it, I was looking at that. I'm like, there's no way they like that's like a fucking fiberglass hot dog. That shit's not gonna last. But like, no, that's a monument. They've been refurbishing it ever since and making sure that it stays there. That's
is
great.
Lovingly preserved.
So badass. I love that.
Oh, they've got like in that little like shack built up behind them. They've got like I guess it's like a painting of a dog with a bowl for like dog water for them to drink.
Yeah.
Dog water. I literally looking at like this small little blurry painting from far away. I thought it was like a weird clown just on the side of the building.
If only it
Why do
were.
they have this clown?
Give a little bit of character.
Mm-hmm.
So Columbo is at the hot dog stand in a short little scene where he's talking to an insurance agent, just trying to find out more about any potential insurance policy between Ken and Jim. He just sort of implies that he's gonna get the information. We don't really. It's unnecessary for the viewer to see anything specific. It's just sort of establishing that Columbo
It's a
is
good-
following
It's
up.
a good exchange because he's like having lunch with this guy, like, oh hey, Columbo, it's good. And then he's like, hey, I wanted to ask you a question. It's like, this is not for fun. This is a business question. He's like, yeah, I wanted to know about these guys. And it's like, well, I can't tell you that. You know, that's a private thing. And he's like, oh, would you prefer that I got a court order and like went through the legal way? And like you could see like the gulp look on his face to like let you know that like, all right, yeah. Like immediately after the cut, he was like, all right, I'll tell you.
Columbo, he phrases it so fun. He's just like, you know what? I won't even bother you. I'll just go get a court order.
Yeah, like I could just go get a court order. Like it's
Like,
not that
yeah,
that
it's
big
not
of
a
a
big
deal.
deal.
The other guy knowing that it is that big of a deal, like, oh, okay, fine.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. My favorite other thing about this bit is these hot dogs they're eating. They either got 2 hot dogs in one bun, or they like cut the hot dogs in half to like get more grill marks on them and like get them all crisped up or something. Either way, I fuck with it. I want that.
I want a hot dog. I want a hot
I do
dog
just
bad.
want a hot dog. I'm literally having like a delicious meal of like broccoli and fish and all that stuff tonight, and it's gonna be great. But I'm still sitting here thinking like, man, I could have a hot dog though.
There's something so elegant about the hot dog stand, you know? It's just it's like the idealized I just want a bite to eat. It's the perfect shape, it's handheld. You can add whatever stuff you want to it. Let's just make a podcast about hot dogs. What are we doing?
We
talking about
should, honestly.
Columbo?
Let's
Yeah.
do a dogcast.
We're gonna pivot really hard.
Welcome to the final episode of Well That Explains It. Welcome to the first episode of Hot Trogs.
Oh, that's a good. See, we even got a perfect name.
It was much easier to think of a name for that one.
Yeah,
than this.
that
Fuck
was
Columbo. We're
way
talking about hot
easier.
dogs now.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite kind of hot dog? You like maybe a little relish? What do you like with the condiments? I like a Seattle
relish.
dog.
Relish and mustard. I am fine with ketchup on a hot dog, but if I'm making my own hot dog, I would not put ketchup on it. I would just
Really?
put mustard, relish.
I like a
and
little
then-
ketchup.
I fuck
Ketchup's
with
fine.
the Montreal style hot dog, which is very similar to a bunch of other styles of hot dog, which is you got your nice steamed bun, you got your dog, you got mustard, maybe you have a bit of relish, that's a sometimes thing. You've got your sauerkraut or coleslaw. It's got to be specifically like a vinegary coleslaw if it's coleslaw. Chopped raw onion, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, raw onion.
That's
on
it.
a
That
dog
sounds
is
great.
great.
That's fucking it. All you need.
We're
Hot dogs
gonna
are one of those things that like you can't like. I mean, I'm sure some people like it this way, and I don't fault them for it. But it's one of those things like you don't need like 7 billion toppings. Like
No.
pizza, you can get away with having 7 billion toppings on a thing, and like it's a fun flavor experience. Hot dogs, you really ultimately need like 3. Like you don't need to go much higher than 3. And if you go higher than 3, then it's like, all right, you're pushing it, but maybe you have an idea here.
All you
Don't
need
even
is a bit.
don't even get me started on corn dogs. We're gonna be here for an extra 3
corn
hours.
dog.
It
Corn
will be a
Douglas.
separate podcast if we get on corn dogs.
Now, which episodes of Columbo does he eat a corn dog in, so we can skip straight to that one and then
Oh,
have a conversation about corn dogs?
Please respond to our viewer poll as soon as possible. Should our April Fool's episode be the I wasn't paying attention podcast, or should it be the hot dog podcast? Please respond by end of the week. Time is running out. I'm very hungry. Thank you.
All right. So we leave. We unhappily leave the hot dog stand. We wish we could be there for longer. It's a very
If
short
only.
scene. Now we're in the lobby of a theater. A play of some kind is wrapping up. Ken is there. He's with a beautiful woman. But
Oh, beautiful woman is definitely way too young for him.
yeah, that too. Pretty par for the course for Columbo episodes, all things
He
considered.
even makes like a comment about it where she's like, "Oh man, I was so fooled by the mystery of this play, and you figured it out right away. You must have such a devious mind, sir." And he's just like,
No, you're just really young.
You just
Like,
don't know
okay.
anything, and I'm a genius. It's fine.
"You're just dumb as fuck, and I'm the genius killer man who writes all the books."
But this beautiful unnamed woman isn't the only person here. We see it's Miss Lysenka, who has come
Yay!
all the way down or up, I guess up, from San Diego to specifically find Ken. And Ken
coincidence.
is really desperate to blow her off. He does not want to. He wants to get back to his date. He's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you anyway. What are you doing here? Oh, you're shopping? All right, great. Bye. Look, I really got to go."
Well, I came to tell you a story, sir.
Yes.
I thought you might want to hear my story that I have.
I got an
It's
idea.
a nice little story. It's my only idea about
idea.
what if there was a killer and the alibi wasn't true, and it's she is still doing her like starstruck, "Oh, I love you, you're so cool" thing. She is trying to blackmail the fuck out of him because she want him.
Yeah. She very specifically says, "Oh, yeah, I have this idea for a mystery story. It's about this witness," which is not a great idea for a mystery story per se, but Ken is instantly just like, "Okay, fine. I'll go tell my date that it's not going to happen." Like, incredible acting. I love it. She's so unsettling.
Sorry, love. I gotta go get blackmailed.
She is like borderline a David Lynch character. Feels very Twin
She's-
Peaks.
Yeah.
She like immediately goes from just being, like the starstruck country girl homebody to like being such a fucking sleazeball. It's great. She's milking him for all he's worth. Then she's gonna milk him some more tonight.
Yeah, it's a wonderful character. So she, alludes in I guess it's hardly an allusion. Very bluntly, just is like, "Hey, guess what? Guess what information I have? We're gonna go get dinner now," and they do. They do go get dinner.
There's such a really, really funny line where they immediately cut to the dinner after that, like, there's a funny story about a witness, sir. And he's like, oh, fuck, how about we go out for dinner? And when we cut to that, she's just like, I just can't resist strawberries.
Yes, they're eating a dinner of strawberries.
Yes.
When I started this episode and was remembering what episode it was, I was like, oh, fuck, this is the strawberries episode.
Oh, it stood out in your mind as this is the one where they eat strawberries together.
Her delivery, her like complete wonder for something so like pedestrian to me, it just sticks with me. It's wonderful.
So Ken and Lily, who is Miss Lysenka's first name is Lily. They're at a wonderful dinner where they're eating strawberries. I assume it's dessert, but we don't see the dinner, so I'm just gonna assume they just ordered a plate of strawberries and are sharing them.
Yum.
Yup.
And Ken's previous demeanor has changed dramatically. He has instantly put on the suave, like, oh yes, please. I'm so happy to be spending time with you, even though literally 45 seconds ago in the show I wanted you to get run over by a steamroller. Like I'm so hopelessly attracted to you. And is, just kind of being like, oh yes, it's so nice to spend time. Why don't you tell me more about that story? What were you saying about a witness? What's that? And Lily brings up that she heard the story about Jim's death on the radio, but brings up that, oh, that's weird. It's weird that the police think he was killed in his office, because that's impossible, because I saw him in your car when you stopped at my store, which is honestly...
he was just in the fucking car and like he parked in front of the damn window.
Yeah, I have this written in my notes as, honestly, a complete and total blunder from Ken. It's crazy he didn't see this even potentially happening.
Yeah.
Like, just a total blunder, complete oversight. Like, how did he not... Like, in the scene where he goes to the store... to Lily's store, she points out, she's like, oh, are you here with another girl? And you very clearly see her look out the window at his car, at Ken's car, and Ken is instantly like, hey, look over here. No, I have nobody with me. It's crazy that at that point he didn't just completely change his plans on account of there being a witness. I guess he just completely underestimated Lily to like do anything. Just a complete blunder. Totally unforced error from the murderer.
Yup.
So anyway, Lily wants $15,000. Ken doesn't really have a choice. They're like, yep, okay, you want $15,000? That sounds fine.
I'll give you $15K and then maybe we'll have a wild night out. And like this is just like fucking what's his name? Jack Cassidy is such a fucking master of like facial expressions in this episode. He is just like doing the most strained like grimace, showing full teeth, smiling.
Yeah, he
looks like he's about to fucking explode.
Yep. It's great. I really, out of all of the returning murderers, I think Jack Cassidy does a great job. I really like whenever he's on the show. He makes for an excellent villain.
Oh yeah.
So at that point, it's the next day. Columbo shows back up at Ken's house to, guess what? Return his books. I told you shouldn't have done that.
And Ken makes a point in like a very, very previous scene of being like, oh, I can't stand the media. They're fucking vultures. I want them out of here. They're not giving me any space over this horrible thing that's happened to me. And then like a fucking day later, he's like, yep, send the press in. I'm real happy to talk to you. Let's do some photos.
Yeah.
We'll do an interview. Maybe later we can have like a one-on-one session and I can get real deep for you.
Yeah. Ken's getting interviewed by a lovely lady reporter. Columbo's mere presence is enough to throw Ken off his game, so he's like, all right, let's wrap this up. Something I really like about this scene is that Ken sort of sees the lady interviewer out. then like nearly closes the door and completely forgets that there was another guy with a camera there, and just like, oh, sorry, Richard, I forgot about you. It's like he's so single-minded. He just like completely blocked out that he wasn't just having a one-on-one conversation with this beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Just
Sorry, normal man who was here.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful woman for me to schmooze.
Yep. At this point, the Columbo annoyance meter is nearly full. Ken is not happy to
Alarms
see
are going
Columbo. There's a great little moment that they share where Columbo is talking. He's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm making a pest of myself," and Jack Cassidy delivers the best, dripping with sarcasm. No. I love it.
No.
It's so I can't
Columbo's
even
like, yes, I am. I know I am.
I can't even come close to emulating it. You'll just have to watch the episode because it's maybe my favorite line delivery in the entire episode. it's so perfect. It was making me giggle. So yeah, Columbo's there to return his books. Ken's like, I'm trying to get to my cabin. I gotta go, man. And Columbo is like, well, I just thought I'd come back and tell you how the investigation's going. That list of
It's going
names.
bad.
Yeah, that not going well. That list of names isn't turning anything up. I
love the exchange where it's like, I just thought I'd stop by and tell you how the investigation's going. Okay, how's the investigation going? No progress, sir.
yeah, that's a good
All right,
point.
man.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I noticed you have 2 bottles of the champagne, though. Are you going out to the cabin with a special friend? And he's like,
No, I love alcohol. I'll drink it all myself.
Yeah, I was thinking about drinking a couple before getting in my car right now, actually.
it really makes the drive down all that much smoother, I tell ya.
There's also something else really funny about this scene to me, which I can explain it away if I choose to, but I choose not to explain away, which is Ken just leaves the house with Columbo still inside of it. He's like, leaves it. Like, obviously, he probably has like a maid or something, but it's really funny to me to think like this guy leaves his house, just leaving a detective inside of his own house. It's a very strange thing.
I mean, like, it's the maid that lets him in while the interview's happening.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Probably just not a great idea if you committed a murder to just let a detective potentially snoop around your house, though.
I mean, what? Is he gonna have a giant neon glowing orange folder like a video game pickup labeled "Here's how I did it"?
Very nearly, just not there.
Might as well.
Yeah.
So while they're so Ken leaves the house, Columbo chases him out. Then we get another classic Columbo scene where Columbo says, "Oh, I checked the phone records." Hey, guess what? I'm checking the phone records. I'm going to check the phone records every episode. So just so you know, I'm going to be doing that a lot. I'm going to be checking the phone records all the time.
And of course he's mad about it. Why'd you check my phone records, Columbo?
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think I murdered somebody, Columbo? Oh, no, sir. It's routine. I have to check the phone records. I'm just a little guy. What do you want me to do?
It's my birthday.
It's literally my birthday, and I just went to a hot dog stand called Tail of the Pup. So you can't be mean to me or be mad at me.
So good. So Columbo says he checked the phone records. There was a phone call from the cabin to Joanna and Jim's house. Of course, we know that Ken already preempted this and just sort of says, yes, of course there was. I called Joanna to tell her that me and Jim are friends again. And then is like,
okay,
bye, I'm gonna go now. And there's not really much more Columbo can do at that point, so he just sort of says, all right, have a good time, drive safe, try not to drink and drive too hard.
Don't have too many drinks before you get to the cabin, sir. And he's like, I'm not listening.
So at that point, Ken arrives back at Lily's store with a briefcase full of $15,000 and a couple of bottles of champagne. Oh, I should point out also, in the previous scene, this is what I was talking about much earlier, where the camera very obviously zooms in, goes from like an out of focus to a focused shot on the bottles of champagne. And it's like, okay, I get it. The champagne is important. I get it, man. All right. What,
it's
do you
a
think
surprise drink
dumb?
that will help someone later. So
Ken's at Lily's store /home. they're schmoozing, they have dinner, they have drinks. The whole scene is extremely tense despite how both characters are acting, because you really spend the whole time just thinking like he's gonna kill her. Like it's not like this poor woman is not, well, I guess I shouldn't say poor, she was blackmailing a guy, but you know, like if you feel a little bad for her because she starts saying like, oh yes, I'm a widow, my husband was a chef, he died.
I love the detail of like he's inviting her over so he can wine and dine her, and he makes her do all the fucking cooking.
Yeah, that too. And the whole murderous vibes are pretty much cemented whenever Ken suggests they row out to the center of the lake and go for a swim, which is not anything that you should be suggesting somebody do when you know that they have just murdered somebody a couple days ago, I would say.
To her credit, she's like, nah.
Yeah, she is not buying it.
Barbara Colby does like a really good job of selling the fact that she's like fucking sloshed right now.
Oh yeah.
Really, really masterful, like drunken slurring acting. And there's like these really fun shots of like all their faces. Like again, like they really like playing with like lighting and shadows on these like close-up shots of faces. And the bit where she's like, oh, well, I don't know, you're the famous killer man. What if you try and get me all alone in a boat with you so that you can kill me and dump me in the lake? And then he's just like,
you really hurt me. You really hurt me on a deep and personal level. Well, since I trust you and love you so much, I guess I should tell you now that you're fucking poor. And I would have paid you more money if you asked for it, but you didn't because you're poor.
It is a very interesting scene between these two characters, mostly in that you don't get too many blackmailers in Columbo. Mm-hmm. They pop up every once in a while, but
it's not that frequent.
No, it's not that frequent. So basically Lily isn't buying the whole go out on the center of the lake stuff. She turns the idea down, correctly citing that Ken has hella killer vibes.
And also they're both drunk.
They're also both drunk. They talk a little more. Lily goes over to inspect the briefcase of money, which she says it's the most money she's ever seen. At this point, Ken sneaks up behind her. I just want to look at it and
smell it for a while.
And hits her in the head, assumedly with a champagne bottle.
There's this great bit during this whole thing, like this whole scene where they have like, you know, the schmoozy romance music playing on like, I don't know if it's like playing on like a radio or a record player or if it's not like a diegetic thing and it's just like for the viewer. And like as the scene goes on, there's this like slight undercut of like other instruments playing and like a bunch of percussion that like fades in slowly and it like starts to add like the weird like fast-paced sinister music from like some of the other scenes. And then it starts like ramping up more and more as he's like pacing over to her with like the bottle that he's gonna club her to death with. And then like the music fucking swells to like this really big finale as she like turns around and opens her mouth and screams. And they don't play the screaming audio at all. It's just the music, and I fucking love that bit.
Yeah, this is also the first Columbo clubbing kill, not the last.
Mark your tallies at home. We're not keeping score of this. That's your job.
No. But I will say it does culminate in a season 2 episode that has my favorite bludgeoning kill because it's so. I'm not gonna spoil it. We'll get there eventually because it's only season 2. I'm sure we'll get at least that far. It's maybe
famous
one of the
bludgeons
most
in Columbo history.
It's honestly like a fucking Hitman death where like somebody throws something at somebody's head and basically accidentally kills them. It's great.
I only vaguely remember that.
I'm trying to remember which
it's it's an episode where the killers are actors. They're like play actors.
Oh yes. That one's great. Yeah, that kill is very.
It's very funny. Right. It's like an accident. It's just like it's a fucking coffee mug. It's like, how did that kill him? Like, I guess he was old, but I don't know. So she gets clocked. She gets Agent 47'd. And Ken does indeed row out to the center of the lake and dumps the body in the center of the lake. He goes
out drunk boating and dumps it and capsizes the boat and just swims back.
Yep.
While drunk. This man is a fucking... How does he do it?
He doesn't
he's
do
probably
it for
not
much
that
longer because
drunk.
we're rapidly approaching Act 3 of the program.
Yeah.
So it's the next day. We see, people gathered. They're like, oh gosh, what happened? They found a lady's body. Oh no.
Oh, weird.
Back to the cabin. And guess who's here? It's Columbo. He's just at Ken's cabin. And he's like, I was just in the neighborhood. This place is so great. I was thinking of renting a cabin for me and my wife as a place to go on a vacation.
I love the exchange they have where it's more or less just, Columbo, how the fuck did you get here?
Oh, well, I was hiding, sir.
Yeah, that too. Like, I just thought I'd let myself in. I saw that it was open. It was I don't know how Columbo knew that this guy. Well, I mean, obviously he knew that it was his house because he's the police. It can look things like that up. But it is very, Faye-like. He just appears. He was hiding.
His psychic justice sense led him to the cabin, like when you smell a pie in a window.
Exactly. Columbo brings up, is like, oh, there's a lot of police around here. What's going on with that? Ken
Weird.
explains that a local woman died. And at this point, Columbo starts to grill him on like any potential relationship with this deceased woman. And Ken's like, oh, no, I mean, oh, well, no, I have no idea who she was. And Columbo's like, well, you have a bag of groceries from her store on your counter.
you got
and
you got a bunch of her
well,
merchandise here.
well, I mean, I shopped there, but I didn't know her. Like,
Yep,
I
was
know
a
a lot
real-
of people.
Like, I don't know her. I don't know anything about her. Well, you went to her store, sir. Yup, she was real nice, real sweet, a real pillar of the community. I did know her, but I didn't really know her.
Oh, so you did know her.
It's like, I knew her, but I didn't know her. You know what I mean, Columbo? I know a lot of people, but I don't know them.
We also get, I think this is maybe the last mention of the wife in the episode, where he's like, Columbo, you're fucking poor. You can't afford any
Yeah,
of the
that's
cabins
true.
here. And then he's just like, oh, that's so sad. My wife's going to be so disappointed. No, never mind. There's another wife mentioned in a bit. I just remembered.
Oh, perfect. I remember that he mentions that his wife is athletic.
Yep.
Or is that his wife is an athlete. Just just slowly building up the lore of Columbo's wife over time.
We need to like take stock of every single Columbo's wife fact and like determine like
who she
what
is.
she looks like and what she does. Because like
And then
in
make a
this
television
episode,
show about her.
Yeah.
In this episode, he's like, oh, well, she's athletic. And then another episode, he's like, yeah, my wife is fat, and it's cool when women are fat or whatever. So like, in my head, she's built like a fucking weightlifter.
Yeah, she's like Zarya from Overwatch or whatever. Just like
Someone else in chat brings up the fucking the nasty principal woman from Matilda.
It's a good visual.
You know what we should do for an April Fool's episode? We should do an episode of Miss Columbo. That's what we should do.
Oh
shit.
my god, I've never seen it. We
No,
should.
me neither. I don't know anything about it, but I know that if I watch it, it's probably gonna be like not upsetting,
us
but
all-
just like why'd they do this?
It's one of those shows. It's one of those pieces of media where it had nothing at fucking all to do with like the source material at
Nope.
first, and then like the execs went, no, you got to tie it in. This will do gangbusters. It'll be huge, and then it just like sullies the fucking brand name or whatever because they tried to make it a brand name.
I do like. I'm struggling to remember the actress's name though, but I do. Captain Janeway. I'm sorry, I can't remember your real name, but I liked you in Voyager.
Is that who plays her?
Yeah, it's Captain Janeway.
Oh my god.
I can't remember her real life name
I
right
don't
now,
remember her
but
She has a
shouts
really
out.
good voice.
Oh yeah, great
love her
actress.
voice.
It's unfortunate about that show being canceled or whatever, but so before Columbo leaves the cabin, he does a one more thing, a very light one more thing to Ken, and is like, "How's the the nightlife around here?" And Ken is instantly like, there is none. It's just crickets. Like there's nothing to do at night around here, which is again another great unforced error from Ken because Columbo gets a great jab in here where he's like, well, that's weird. I called you last night, but nobody was here. It's like just the
Weird.
perfect setup, like the
it's-
1-2 punch. He walks. It's Looney Tunes walking into the rake shit. Like
yeah, it's even better because like the setup is earlier in the conversation when he's like he tricks him into saying it. He's like, isn't it weird that she just rode out like in the just before light, like in the middle of the like, you know, really late at night like that? And he's like, oh, it's not that weird, you know, like some people do it if they need to get away. And then he's just like, oh yeah, you weren't home
there
when I called you. As if
I tried to
were
call
you like all but saying, were you out on a boat mysteriously in the middle of the night for some reason doing something?
Wouldn't that be weird?
And then like literally after he says like, I tried to call you, but you weren't there. He doesn't even say bye. He just leaves.
No, he just leaves, which is great because I do like it. I love whenever they leave a mystery. Is like, did Columbo actually do that, or did he just say that because he knew it was the perfect thing to throw him off the game, like off his game at that exact moment?
I know the whole point of that line is to be needling him, like, yeah, I knew you were out at night doing something weird, but like, there's this long, beautiful, probably accidental thread of continuity with him like asking, so what's the nightlife like around this area? Is it wild? Is it bumping? And the final episode of the series is called Columbo Likes the Nightlife.
Oh, shit.
He's so sad that he can't go clubbing here,
He
and
wants
he's too poor to afford a place.
He's like, I'm too dirt poor as a police officer to get a beautiful cabin, and there's not even a club? Come on.
What a fucking mess. Why am I even here?
It's so depressing. So at that point, we go back to Joanna's house. Columbo is there, and this is like an interesting scene that I feel like you don't get very often in Columbo, where he's kind of just recounting all the clues that he's collected to another character.
Yeah.
That's unusual for Columbo. It's normally Columbo just kind of finds the linchpin, and then just like you see a funny scene where he gets a guy real good. In this one, he goes to Joanna's house and he's basically trying to convince her.
Oh, before this, really quick.
Yeah.
When he's like going to Lysanka's house and like snooping around and stuff, like, you know, talking to the police about how he's like outside his
totally
jurisdiction.
Forgot that. You're right. I'm sorry. I completely skipped that paragraph in my notes.
It's fine. It's like a quick little scene where he like,
but there's something
goes
very important in there that I wanted to bring up, so thank you, because I totally forgot. I accidentally skipped it.
And the very important thing, of course, which I have written down in all capitals, in bold, with like 5 exclamation points, Columbo stealing candies outside his jurisdiction.
Yeah, I didn't notice that part.
He walks into the place while like the cops are like, you know, taking stock of like what they've seen and found and heard.
They're like reporting it to the press, and he's just like meandering around and just like taking candies.
Yeah.
He digs his grubby little mitts into a jar of candies and is just taking them.
It's awesome.
This is important for the case. Yes, I apologize.
Why do you do that?
I accidentally skipped over this paragraph in my notes, but yes, before we go back to Joanna's house, Columbo goes to Lily's house/store, and he's on the look for clues. And I love as Holly pointed out, you know, he's kind of like looking around, he's stealing candies. I didn't even notice that part. I love this where he's crouching down, and as though willed by an unseen force, a champagne cork magically reveals itself from a corner, like it was looking for Columbo. Is that what that fucking was?
Yeah, it's a champagne cork.
It was a champagne cork.
I swear, I rewatched that scene 4 or 5 fucking times, trying to figure out what that little thing was that popped out, and the best I came up with was, oh, I guess that was like a weird, like, little foot from like a little table stand or whatever. That's weird. I wonder why they're drawing so much attention to it. Well, anyways.
Yeah, so that's
he smells it and everything.
He smells it. He's like, but
I didn't know why.
It's just the way that it appears. It's like there's no reason. Columbo doesn't do anything. He doesn't even like appear to move anything that would cause that cork to roll out.
No, I had to rewatch it again because I was like, how did they?
Like, why did that happen?
It's actually very smart because it's kind of like what actually happened is like what happened in fiction, which is he sees like a shoe bin and he like checks something on his shoe, and when he lifts up his foot to the left, he kicks the champagne cork out from where it's hiding. So he accidentally soccer kicks it into the room, which is like, you know, performance-wise, he did it very cleanly. But like, I literally had to rewatch it. Like, that is what happened. Like, he knocked it out from a hiding place. He just didn't see it there.
Yeah,
and then he goes, "Whoa, what did I just kick? Oh, hey."
Yeah, I thought that he like knocked one of the feet off of that like shoe bin or whatever or something.
It's crazy because I watched the episode twice and I didn't like, to me it literally looked like the cork like rolled out of its own free will. Like it was it was seeking Columbo because it knew the cork knew that it was a clue and it had to expose itself to Columbo so he could solve the case.
The spirit of justice, exactly.
So, and we know that Columbo had already noticed the champagne bottles at Ken's home. So at this point, he's like, all right, like, and if that wasn't enough, he keeps looking and finds the signed novel that Ken had given Lily.
Yes.
Way earlier in the episode. So really just, Ken has not done a good job of being a murderer this episode. There are some very clever murderers in Columbo. Ken is not one of them. They pretty much make a point of saying, like, you weren't very good at this. You did a bad job.
You kind of suck real bad, bud, and you're making things worse for yourself constantly.
So at that point, now we're back at Joanna's house. Columbo's explaining all the clues. He's trying to convince Joanna that Ken did it. He's like, look, there's all this, there's nothing like too big, but there's all this little stuff, you know, they had an insurance policy. He took out $15,000 and then immediately put it back into his bank account. That doesn't make any sense.
Weird. Why do you do that?
There's all this little weird stuff. And Columbo finds a note. I thought this was kind of funny too. Columbo finds a note that says, Jack and Jill went up the hill. Did Jack kill Jill? If so, find out why. And Joanna's like, yeah, Jim would always leave little notes around for his book ideas.
He's always writing weird shit like that.
And I'm like, what the fuck? What kind of book is that gonna, like, what is that? Like, that's an idea for a book?
My wonderful, dear, beloved husband was always leaving around video game lore logs for people to find in the house.
Yeah. Like, just another cryptic message written on the back of a matches box or whatever.
Oh, I wrote this down. There's a really good bit at like the beginning of this scene where he's like, you know, delivering the news to the wife. And it feels like such a perfect Columbo encapsulation where he's just like really seriously like,
ma'am, I think he killed your husband. By the way, do you have any matches?
Yeah.
Do you have any matches? True. I need to smoke right now.
I do my best thinking when I smoke.
Now.
I gotta get that smoke in my lungs. It's gonna help me solve the case. And the funny part is that it does help him solve the case. The only reason he finds the note is because he asked for matches, and she's like, oh yeah, the matches are right there.
There's another episode, like, I can't remember which one, but there's another one where, like, he brings up the fact that he has a cigar in his mouth, but, like, someone's like, he can't smoke here, or he doesn't have any matches, and he's like, he says, like, oh, I pretty much just bite on them. Just for the fun of it. It's like,
I just like the taste
for him. I just like the taste of it.
Just
they don't make chew toys for adults no more, so I gotta treat this like I'm a dog. It's how I get my fix.
Fucking biting on some Swisher Sweets.
Swisher Sweets always make me think of that one video of that like security guard.
The security guard playing GoldenEye,
like live streaming, and then there's like sirens going off.
That's so good.
Stop putting those balls out of my face.
The inflection with which he says Swisher Sweets is like always in my head.
I think he calls them Swishy Sweets also.
Swishy Sweets.
So now, with that scene out of the way, we are in the final scene of this episode. We're here when Columbo, he's gonna get him.
No, importantly, this is where they like out loud establish like the motive. Like the motive is the insurance money. He wants the insurance money because he can't stop. He's addicted to spending money.
Yes.
He can't help himself. He's got this massive, expensive house. He's got a second cabin house.
A bunch of paintings.
He keeps bringing in beautiful women for dates. He owns all of this like original art that he's hanging up, and he's getting more. He's got all these bills he has to pay off. He's not writing the fucking books, and his partner was gonna leave him.
Yeah. He is rich, and even then he's not rich enough to support his own lifestyle. He's like,
everything he does is entirely his own fault. Every problem he has is because he inflicts it upon himself. He can't help it.
Yep.
Addicted to it.
And so we're back at Jim's office. Ken is getting ready to move out of the office. However, the police are there, which is not a great sign for Ken. And also Columbo is there, which is an even worse sign.
The moving guy, it's not Cole Meany, but it looks like Cole Meany, and he's dressed up like a cute little milkman.
That's true. It's kind of a weird outfit for a moving guy. I don't know. Maybe it's not for that era.
I literally forgot that he was a moving guy, and in my notes I wrote milkman with 3 question marks, and then it went, looks like Cole Meany.
He does look extremely like a milkman in that scene.
He does.
It's kind of funny because it's like, it's just a very human moment between these two characters where Ken is like, what the hell are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be moving out? And he's just like, man, I just drive the truck. You're going to have to go talk to the guys that are doing the moving. Like, I'm just here to drive, man.
He even sounds a little bit like Cole Meany trying to do like an American accent. Miles O'Brien is here like, can I please deliver milk?
Yeah.
It's not working.
So Ken goes to the office. He's like, why aren't you moving out? Ah, shit, it's Columbo. And
this fucking guy.
And Columbo is there, and Ken's upset, and Columbo's like, well, I'm here to arrest you. He's very casual about it in this episode. He's like, oh, well, I thought maybe we should have a talk privately. And Ken is like, what could we possibly have to talk about? And Columbo says something along the lines of, well, I'm gonna arrest you for the murder of your guy.
It's
like, well,
we have nothing to talk about. Oh, I have something to talk about. I'm here to arrest you. How about that? How's that for starters?
And Columbo points out correctly, like, you have not shown a single shred of genuine emotion over your partner's death from the first moment I saw you. You have not even seemed to care even the littlest bit, genuinely, which is not enough to convict somebody. But, Columbo starts adding up all the clues, the insurance policy, taking the blackmail money out, putting it back in, the signed book at Lysenka's house, and Ken is pretty steadfast in being like, oh yeah, you want to play that way? Well, I know that none of that stuff is enough to stick me. I'm gonna call my lawyer.
Yeah, it's all circumstantial.
This is when Columbo brings up the point that Columbo is like, boy, I really didn't think I was gonna get you, which he says a lot in these. He says it in the last episode too. He's like, oh man, I had no clue how I was ever gonna get you.
You gave me a real good runaround for a while. But
Columbo brings up that the first murder was very clean and done very well, but the second murder, the murder of Lily, was very messy and left way more loose ends and clues. And this is Columbo's logic. He knows that Jim did all the writing for the books. If Ken was ingenious enough to pull off the first murder, why wouldn't he just write his own books? Which, I'm going to be honest, I don't think I like the end of this episode very much. It kind of fell flat for me.
Silly.
It doesn't really, it doesn't have the kind of, bam, gotcha sauce that the really good Columbo episodes have. This one kind of just, limps over the finish line to me.
It's not a very punchy gotcha, but I like it because it's cartoonish.
It's so strange to me because it goes on and Columbo has found a note in the office. He was looking for a note. Now that he knew, because Joanna said oh yeah, Jim just left notes around. He finds a note in the office that says, A wants to kill B, drives B to a remote house and has him call his wife in city, tells her he's working late in the office, bang, bang. And upon hearing this, Ken just sort of gives up, which is just weird. I honestly just found the ending of this episode to be pretty weak. There really isn't anything that super pins Ken down.
Nope.
He just sort of gives himself up. And then to make things even more confusing, Ken is like, that's the only idea I ever had. Which is like, wait, but
See, I
don't know.
I like that part of it. That's a fun little cherry on top. It's like a convoluted gotcha, but then the reveal of like, you know what's ironic? That's my idea. That's the only good idea I've ever had. And then he says like, he's like, I never thought that moron would write it down, which is really funny.
He does
so
call
the
him
killer,
like an idiot.
Yeah, the killer is not only undone by his own idea, but he is further undone by the fact that the person that he fucking hated and murdered thought that that was a good idea and wrote it down, which is really fucking good.
See, that part about it's great.
I do like the callback. It wraps back around to the deja vu comment, like in minute 5 of the episode. Like, I like that part of it.
Yeah, that's even great because it's like, wasn't this an idea you had to like take some guy out and like, whatever. Maybe it's just, maybe I'm just being crazy about it. Bang.
This feels so familiar. Oh well, wine and dine me, Buster.
Yeah, I thought that part. I really feel like I felt like it was the writer saying it's time for the episode to be over versus the writer having like something that truly causes the murderer's alibi to crumble, which is normally how a good episode of Columbo concludes, is like there's something that's like irrefutable evidence that you were either here when you said you were here, or here's the murder weapon, or whatever, like something like that.
Or like a circumstantial evidence or supposition strong enough that the murderer goes, all right, you got me. But this one, he bends pretty easy.
Yeah, this one is like, basically he goes from like, this is all circumstantial, I'm calling my lawyer, to hearing one thing, and instead of just being like
fuck.
Instead of trying to come up with an excuse, he's like, well, how many minutes we got? 2? All right, I guess you got me. Like I think it seems weird to me the way that they establish Ken as the character he is, seeing him give up like that, just kind of, it doesn't really mesh with the way the character had been acting up until that point.
He wasn't feeling it. Really, his heart wasn't in it anymore.
Yeah,
he's like,
he really just gives up. He's like, I give up.
Columbo, you've been hounding me for like 70 plus minutes. Whatever, I'm done. Can we roll the credits? I'm tired.
So that
they don't really stick the landing, but I think the way they blunder it at the end is funny, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were going, I get that they wanted to do the whole like ironic twist of like, that's the only thing I ever actually did right. But all that leads it is to like it making less sense that he would give himself up at that point. Like he didn't even try to defend himself after that. And it's just him saying that he wrote that is even more evidence against himself. Like he's lost all self-preservation at that point, and he's just like, yep, you got me. Here's everything you could ever want to know, including the ironic twist. It's very I mean, it's very TV, you know? It's very like, it's convenient. It's convenient for the audience's sake, for the sake of a twist. But I mean, I think overall the whole episode was good.
I have to wonder if maybe like the ending would still be contrived if it was like this, but I have to wonder if maybe it would feel a little more punchy if it was like, yep, here's this idea written down that you took for how you do the murder, and then suddenly he's like, oh no, I'm sad now, I killed this guy and he liked my one idea that I had.
See, that's close to what I was thinking, which I thought, because I'm pretty sure Columbo does this in some other episode later on. But probably. I thought he was going to take the idea of like, oh, I found this slip of paper. Jim is the one that wrote this amazing murder. He was the only one that could have come up with it. You're such a fucking dumbass. Your stupid ass could never have come up with it. Like trying to like goad Ken into being like, how dare you call me stupid? I'm the one that came up with that in the first place. Like I thought that's what they were gonna do, but they don't really go. They don't do that.
Not really.
They kind of just use it as a final minute twist just for the sake of it.
Yeah. Again, dramatic contrivance goes up much higher as the show goes on. Starting off, sure. It's just like to a television audience, that's the most decisive proof that you need. So he gives up when that is shown.
Yeah.
Like there's so many other ways they could have like taken that ending to like make it stick a little better. And like, I get that this is early on, they're still finding some of their footing, but it it makes this bit stick out all the more when, like, the second pilot we have is as fucking strong as it is, like, all the way through.
Yeah. And again, I think it's like I said at the beginning, where the last episode was a movie. This one's a TV show.
Yeah,
it's not.
And also, they have like a bunch of different authors and stuff. So
yeah, it's toned down from the last episode. It's not quite. I mean, it's directed by Steven Spielberg, so it's certainly not bad or anything. But it is like
it's very nice to look
budget, lower budget, less characters, less scene or less locations. More straightforward.
I like how lean it is, though. I think it works really well for like the Columbo format and for like this story they're trying to tell. But you definitely can tell it's like, all right, this is a full production now. We got to take some cuts. Some
exactly.
measures.
And I mean, yeah, it sets you up well for the formula of Columbo. I mean, at this point they've gotten, the first episode, the first pilot was its own thing. Second pilot, you sort of see it come together. And in this one, at this point, they've done the formula 3 times in a row. So it's really solidified as like, this is what this show is going to be.
They're less in your face about like, yeah, this is Columbo. This is how Columbos. This is who he is and how he does it.
Yes.
And so it feels much more natural in this episode, which like flows in a way that I like.
They do not have a scene where the murderer is like, oh, Columbo, I know exactly how you work. Here's how you work as a character. I'm going to explain it to the audience so that they understand what Columbo is.
Oh, yeah. Columbo, you sly little elf. I've pulled up a Wikipedia article that talks about the different contrivances of your series.
Yeah.
You think you have me in a corner, but I have TV tropes pulled up.
Exactly.
That'd be Columbo's worst foe.
I also feel like
I don't mean to rush. I do have to go to work. I didn't realize how late it was.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. We'll
I don't want to end the
wrap it
episode.
up.
I can just kind of step out and let you guys wrap up.
I mean, we're almost done.
We're finishing it up here.
Yeah.
This episode was okay.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Good. It was
I thought it
fine.
was,
Yeah.
For the first real episode of Columbo, I really, I mean, I honestly feel like it was kind of a Columbo light episode, all things considered. I think Jack Cassidy might just be on screen more than Columbo is in this episode.
Yeah.
Because it's a very, in terms of the percentage of Columbo, it's not as much as, maybe some of the later episodes, but I think, I think it shows that this season is probably going to be solid enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My final closing thought, I suppose, to not, I guess, just for the sake of not retreading old ground, I've said basically everything I've wanted to say. My final closing thought, every time I watch this episode or rewatch this episode, right at the end, it's up on the screen right now if you're watching the VOD, they pan into this painting of, what's her fucking name?
Miss Melville.
They pan up like real close to this painting of Miss Melville, and every time I watch them do that, I keep thinking they're about to freeze frame over her face and have a poorly edited in cartoon wink.
That would be...
And it never happened.
Oh, it's so bad that they never... I can't believe they never did that.
Why did they forget to do it?
They should have done that.
I think they fucked up bad.
Miss Melville, you've done it again.
Great work, Mrs. Why didn't they make a Miss Melville spinoff?
They should have. That would have been great.
They should have.
You have to eat all the eggs.
You have to eat all the eggs.
You have to eat all of the eggs.
Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? Okay, I gotta hop out.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, and thank you for listening to this episode. That's another one in the can. As always, we will be doing them on weekends when we can, whenever people are available. I would say next week. I don't know. It sounds like I think people might be busy next week. I know that I am busy on Saturday next week, so unless we can do it on Sunday, probably going to be an off week. But we're hitting about once every other week or so. So not a bad schedule.
I got a family member that's going to be recovering from a major surgery around that time, so I'm either going to be too busy or too stressed.
Yeah, no, so probably nothing next week. And then, we'll keep you posted. I have sent the audio of the first episode to Balp. I don't know if he put it up on the feed yet. I have to bug him about it. But I'm working on getting the first 2 episodes up on the RTVS podcast feed. This one will go up there too. But yeah, other than that, I guess just thanks for listening, and we'll be back within a month to do another one.
Thanks for enjoying Mystery.
Yeah, go enjoy a Miss Melville novel today.
Go out there, do some good, try and figure out who did it and why.
Yeah, pay close attention to the beginning of the next episode, and you might get some clues as to who committed the murder.
Good luck.
Good luck. Bye, everybody.
Bye.